Seconds.
Hello everyone, Nick the DM here. It's been a while since I've uploaded. My schedule's been all sorts of messed up recently, and I'm trying to fix that now. Today we're taking a look at a old monster that, as far as I'm aware, hasn't been seen since the D&D Basic Edition accessory, the Creature Catalog. We're going to look at the Bodendruker. Pronunciations aside, this was a monster that was suggested in the comments of one of my videos, and I thought I'd take a look at it. And let me say, it is wild. The Bodendruker, also called the Leveler, looks like a massive, sickly green elephant standing nearly twice the height of a normal elephant, making it around 20 feet tall, and if the proportions are similar to a normal elephant, nearly 40 feet long. The Bodendruker has 2 long, mostly straight tusks and 8 elephantine trunks. The name Leveler comes from the fact that when it walks, it leaves a perfectly flat trail behind it. This is due to its 4 legs flaring out to feet that are 10 feet across, and in addition to its size and the square cube law, the Bodendruker weighs somewhere around 24,000 kilograms or 53,000 pounds. Bodendrukers often prey upon purple worms, those massive creatures that are absolutely terrifying. They often find the burrows and drive them above ground by pounding their feet on the earth until the purple worm emerges, at which point the Bodendruker tramples and devours them. One last thing to mention before getting into their stats. It is said that any gear the Bodendruker tramples on or passes over becomes completely unusable, even magic items. Of course, artifacts would not be affected by this, and magic items may have a chance of surviving, but I didn't make an actual ability for this. I just thought I'd leave it up to the DM's discretion. This was, of course, an ability from like the first edition D&D, so things were a little bit more save or die back then. But anyways, I digress. Alright, now let's get into the stats. As usual with these videos, I took it upon myself to convert the stats of the Bodendruker to 5th edition, and after numerous comparisons and many days of refining abilities and balancing with the challenge rating chart in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I finished what I believe is a fair and accurate stat block. So let's get into it. The Bodendruker is a gargantuan monstrosity with neutral alignment. It has an armor class of 17, which is natural armor. It has 330 hit points, or 20d20 plus 120, and an on-foot speed of 40 feet. And that's all it has. No special movement speeds, nothing different. For ability scores, it has a 28 strength, a 10 dexterity, a 23 constitution, a 2 intelligence, 14 for wisdom, and 10 for charisma. So overall, of course, physical stats very high, but it is monstrosity or closer to a beast. I chose monstrosity because it was defined as a magical creature, which normally translates to monstrosity in 5th edition. But anyways, its intelligence is incredibly low, so spellcasters will have quite a big advantage against this thing, especially if they stay out of its range. For saving throws, it has proficiency in strength and constitution, giving it a plus 15 strength saving throw and a plus 12 constitution save. It has resistance to cold and fire damage, which is from the fact that it had immunity to cold and fire damage from normal attacks, not magical ones back in the day, but because those are one and the same now, well, at least for like elemental purposes, I just gave it resistance. Though it does have immunity to poison and the poison conditioned. Condition. Passive perception of 12 is the only real sense it has. It doesn't have dark vision, doesn't have blind sense, nothing special there. It doesn't speak any languages. It is, of course, very bestial, beast-like. It has a challenge rating of 20, which I didn't expect when I first looked at the creature. Then as I compared it to other things and looked that it preyed on purple worms, did comparisons and whatnot, it ended up coming out to challenge rating 20, which, of course, balanced as it is with the normal stat block or the Dungeon Master's Guide chart for challenge ratings, it is very high in damage and just damage output mainly, but it's low in the fact that it's susceptible to a lot of ranged and magical attacks. So let's continue. For abilities, the Bodendruker has legendary resistance, which I only gave it 2 per day as opposed to most dragons and that having 3. I only gave it 2 just because it felt like a powerful creature, but it didn't feel as powerful as a dragon per se, just because it's only really physically powerful. It's not mentally capable, it's not magic resistant, it's not any of these special things. So I only gave it 2 per day. Of course, you can change that. Anything in a stat block you can really change if you're the dungeon master. Its second ability is leveling movement. The Bodendruker ignores difficult terrain caused by effects on the ground, such as uneven terrain, rocky paths, or effects such as the spike growth spell. Any difficult terrain on the ground the Bodendruker passes over is crushed flat and is no longer considered difficult terrain. So I added this for the fact that anything it steps on is completely flattened for the most part. So most things that are on the ground, it will just completely ignore. Though of course, if it's a cube from like the web spell or whatnot, or like high winds or stuff like that, it'll still be affected by it. It's just any effects on the ground. Its next ability is Siege Monster. The Bodendruker deals double damage to objects and structures, as is expected with basically what the creature is. Then it has Trample, which is similar to other abilities, but I'll get into that. Its Trample is the Bodendruker can enter a creature's space. Any creature whose space the Bodendruker enters for the first time on a turn must make a DC 17 dexterity saving throw, taking 27 or 5d10 bludgeoning damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. A prone creature who fails the save must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or drop to 0 hit points. This is the fact that in earlier editions it had a save or die effect, where if it walked over you, you could just immediately die if you failed to save. I balanced that, changed it a little bit. Now, of course, the wording I kind of messed up. I'm realizing now reading over it. I should have specified a creature that is huge or maybe large or smaller that it enters, though I could absolutely believe it trampling a huge creature as well, especially if it's a prone one. But that will also be up to discretion. I wouldn't let it use this ability against a creature that is its same size, like gargantuan or larger. But anyways, regardless, it can walk over a creature and just basically crush them. And of course, this compared with its magical item destroying ability, however you choose to run that, can be absolutely devastating to a party. Next, we have its actions. The Bodendruker has a multi-attack where the Bodendruker makes 3 attacks with its trunks or 2 with its tusks. If the Bodendruker has less than 3 trunks, it can make a number of trunk attacks equal only to the number of trunks remaining. So basically, if it has less than 3, it can't make 3 attacks. It can only make however many it has. And this is because I gave the option that if you are to target the trunks specifically, you can actually chop those off. So anyways, its trunk attack is a plus 15 to hit, reach of 10 feet, and it does 36 or 6d8 plus 9 bludgeoning damage, and the target is grappled, escape DC 18. Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained. The Bodendruker has 8 trunks, each of which can grapple a target. The Bodendruker cannot attack a target it is currently grappling. This is because it would be kind of in the way or out of the way. Each trunk has an AC of 15 and 50 hit points. Once a trunk's hit points are reduced to 0, the trunk is severed, and any target that it was grappled by the trunk is no longer grappled. Damage dealt to the trunks is not deducted from the Bodendruker's current hit points. So I added this for one of multiple reasons. Number one, it has super high damage output, especially like a devastatingly high amount. But you can, of course, knock it down from there. Being able to attack the trunks are easier than attacking it, and especially at high levels, they can probably deal enough damage to escape the trunk. If they can't, they can always choose to escape the grapple. Though, for the most part, you can't really be trampled while it is grabbing you and dragging you with it, or holding you out of the way of the other objects, so some creatures might choose to maintain in the grapple. Next, it has its Tusk Attack, which is a plus 15 to hit, reach of 5 feet, and it does 42 or 6d10 plus 9 piercing damage. I kept these actual damage outputs as close to the traditional damage output from the earlier editions as I could, which just happened to coincide perfectly with it being CR 20, because this is appropriate average damage, especially when I get into the legendary actions, which are the next thing it has. The Bodendruker can take 3 legendary actions, choosing from the options below. Only one legendary action option can be used at a time, and only at the end of another creature's turn, and it regains spent legendary actions at the start of its turn. Firstly, it has Detect, where it can make a perception check. Then it has its Squeeze ability, which costs 3 actions. Each creature the Bodendruker is grappling with its trunks must make a DC 19 strength saving throw or take 13 1d8 plus 9 bludgeoning damage. So it's not too devastating until you think of the fact that all of the melee combatants in your party are very likely to be grappled incredibly quickly, meaning they'll have disadvantage on all attack rolls. And this creature can make 3 attacks, and it has 8 trunks, each of which can hold a target. So it could hold up to 8 targets and deal 13 damage to each target each round, apart from its normal attacks and movement and such. And then it has its Trampling Charge ability. Costs 2 actions. It's a legendary action, not an ability. The Bodendruker can move up to its speed in a single direction and make a Tusk Attack. On a hit, the target must succeed a DC 19 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Now, that's really it for the stat block, but let's go over a few things. Number 1, it is physically incredibly strong. Its damage output is very high. The likelihood of getting trampled by it, especially with its Trampling Charge and then its just trample ability, can make an encounter very deadly. And this is if the players choose to charge in. If they're smart enough to keep out of its 40 foot, 80 foot with its legendary action range, then they'll be pretty okay, especially if the spellcasters maybe fly, stay up high, and start attacking with spells. But if the barbarian runs in, it's probably going to get either tusked, trampled, trampled, knocked prone, and then probably just outright die, or they're going to be grappled for a long period of time. Of course, they can take out the trunks. They can take out the trunks. They can do whatever else they need to do. But honestly, this is one of those encounters where it is easy to defeat if you think through it. But if you don't think through it, it can be very devastating. Alright, that is it for the Bodendruker. As usual, a link to the stat block is in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this was a viewer suggestion, so if you have any creatures you think I should cover or maybe convert to 5th edition, comment down below what I should look at. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!